Good evening and welcome to Insider. I'm Maayan Hoffman, executive editor of ILTV, and tonight I decided to shake things up. I brought with me a co-host, someone you're quite familiar with, dperry, a veteran foreign correspondent who has reported from 4 continents and served as chief editor of the Associated Press for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Dan has spent decades challenging power, narratives, and assumptions. He writes Ask Questions Later on Substack and contributes to Newsweek, The Hill, Haaretz, and more. Welcome.
Thank you, Maayan.
Yeah,
Thank you for inviting me. This should be fun.
Should be fun. Glad you're here with me. Now, tonight, we're going to start with Iran. If Israel is attacked, what should it do, especially as President Trump signals he wants a deal more than a war? While Israel appears to be thinking strategically about something a little bit bigger. Then, if we have time, we're going to turn to Gaza, ceasefires, escalations, and responsibility. To break this all up and to break it all down, I should say, we have with us 2 senior journalists and analysts, Gideon Levy of Haaretz and Ruthie Blum of JNS. Let's get started. So I'm going to ask the first question, and it's going to be this. Right now, today, Witkoff is in the country meeting with Netanyahu, with the chief of staff, with the head of the Mossad. And Ruthie, what is it that Israel should be asking for?
I don't know about asking for. I think that Israel should be clarifying something to Steve Witkoff. He's problematic on two counts. One is that he's got financial interests in Qatar. The other is that he is also under the delusional thinking that that deals are better than, that you can make a deal with Islamist, jihadist, with a regime that's the greatest state sponsor of global terrorism. He thinks that a deal is possible. And I think that Netanyahu and the head of the Mossad and the head of the army need to set him straight. That was that kind of thinking that also led to the October 7th massacre.
Respond.
Obviously, I think exactly the opposite than Ruthie. Surprise, surprise. I think that we are in a stage in which it's about time that Israel will realize that wars are not the answer for every problem. And in many cases, wars solve nothing. And the only way really to solve things goes through diplomacy. I'm not a pacifist. I don't think that wars are always unnecessary. But at this point, after 2 years in Gaza in which Israel achieved nothing, really nothing, today's Israel position is much worse than 2 years ago. To go now to push the United States and ourselves into another war with Iran, and then what? And then what? We'll get back to the negotiation table after so many losses. So let's give it a chance now.
Let me sharpen this though a little bit. There are situations in history where foreign intervention is justifiable. When the country is sufficiently oppressive to its own people, it could be justified. But most certainly, when a regime interferes with its neighbors and causes tremendous damage to an entire region, the way the Islamic Republic has done in this case, it seems to me that there is a reasonable argument for foreign intervention and even for an attempted assist to a regime change, to inspire local opposition to, together with the foreign assist, take things over and bring about a better future for the Iranians, but the region. Would you really dispute that that would be a reasonable thing to shoot for?
I couldn't agree more with you, Dan. The only problem is that it's not achievable.
Regime changes have happened.
Not through wars and not through a quite based regime like the Iranian one. You can bomb and bomb and bomb, and maybe you unite the Iranian people around the leadership. The leadership might fall, but it will fall from within. Bombardment will not bring you to this. If I thought that a war will change the regime in Iran, I would be in favor of.
But let's go back to the 12-day war, and we know that a lot of the reason that we see the protests today, and Ruthie, I'm going to have you respond to this, is because they felt empowered against their government because they saw a weakened government after Israel and the United States attacked Iran and destroyed most of their nuclear facilities. Ruthie.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, Gideon, I do agree with you about one thing. It is true that the great Middle East expert, the late Bernard Lewis, said, I don't know, about 20 years ago, if I remember correctly, he said, the trouble with bombing Iran's nuclear facilities is that it's likely to unite the Iranian people around the regime. At the time, I thought, well, if so, then screw them. Okay, I thought, I'm sorry, we have to worry about our own security. Today, it's different. I think the Iranian people are not going to rally around the regime no matter what. First of all, they were less afraid because they saw that Iran was more of a paper tiger than I think the whole world thought, and certainly Israel. All of those years we were saying, we can't poke the bear because then we'll be wiped out and we'll be nuked and everything. And then we saw in the 12-day war that it was not at all as bad as we thought.
It could also be worse next time. You could argue that there was an element of luck, great skill, but also
no,
luck.
For sure, although we did damage a lot of their facilities. The issue, though, now is we're seeing the Iranian people in the streets, and here's the reason that I think that both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have a great responsibility to the Iranian people, because both of them encouraged them to keep going, and they were being gunned down in the streets. It's not true that executions ceased, as President Trump seems to think, delusionally. To abandon them at this stage would be immoral and terrible.
Ruthie, let's consider an alternative scenario, because there are many ways in which this could go, and Gideon is obviously correct that a foreign intervention generally doesn't work particularly well, and history suggests it could end up working very badly indeed. If it turns out that the regime in Iran knows that they are as brittle as we believe them to be, and that they're detested by the people to the degree that we believe them to be, they might be more acquiescent. If it were possible, and I do not trust Trump to push as far as I'd like him to push, but if it were possible to get them to not only forswear nuclear enrichment, but also give up the ballistic missile program and their regional jihadist expansion project via the militias, theoretically, if that were possible, would you not agree that it might be worth pursuing? In other words, all this pressure and the internal dissatisfaction might have created a more conciliatory reality in a part of the regime. If it were true, wouldn't you go for that?
Well, I would go for it if it were true in some fantasy land, but in reality, everything you described would mean that they're no longer jihadist, radical Islamists, they're no longer with hegemonic...
still want to oppress the people, still want to kill the gays.
No, but the point is not that. The point is that I wouldn't go for that, because if the regime knows it's brittle, one of the things we need to start seeing are defections on the part of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and also members of the regime. What we have seen is that some of them are moving their money out, which is also a sign that they themselves are nervous. This isn't the time then to say, okay, you're nervous, so now we're going to capitulate. The opposite has to happen. But there's no way any deal they make, you can't trust that. You say you don't trust President Trump to go as far as he should. I don't trust the regime in Iran to uphold, and even if it makes an agreement, it won't stick to it.
Now, Gideon, what do you think? I mean, because the reality is that if the regime gets sensitive enough, maybe a strike is actually what it needs to be able to topple it. You think about this threat that the Iranian regime is making, that they're going to attack Israel if the U.S. attacks Iran. But if Iran would attack Israel, they know they have no air defenses. They know that Israel will demolish the Iranian regime. So wouldn't that actually be a stronger move if you actually want to see the regime fall?
No, because Israel cannot demolish the regime. Nobody can demolish from the outside. We are dealing with hundreds of thousands and millions who are part of this regime. It's not a one-man show there. The Revolutionary Guards are tens of thousands of people. The whole establishment is a very strong and well-rooted establishment. You don't uproot it by bombing. It doesn't work.
So what would you do if Israel were attacked? And I put this question to both of you. Let's suppose that the Iranians act unwisely, in my assessment, take this risk of provoking Israel that has more airplanes here than the Americans do in this region, and gives Israel the excuse to act. Should Israel act?
First of all, I think you underestimate them. They are much more clever than this. They wouldn't do it because they know the consequences.
No, I agree with that.
So until now, they are quite rational. I mean, we tend always to portray them as crazy people. They are quite, according to their rationale, they are quite rational. It's a quite rational leadership. And I think, obviously, if they attack us, we have no other choice but to retaliate. And therefore, that's another reason for me to do anything possible before any attack, because the prices can be very heavy. Israel is, after 2 years of war, really exhausted mentally, morally, socially, and financially. And there is no energy now for another war.
So, Ruthie, if Iran does attack Israel, what do you do?
Okay, so first of all, I actually agree with Gideon that Iran is
stop
not
the show.
No, we can't do this. Wait, I'll tell you where I totally disagree.
Wrong. I guess
I'll
I'm
tell
wrong.
You
I
must
guess
be
I went
wrong.
wrong.
I agree
Yeah.
that they're not that stupid and they're not going to attack Israel first. I think we need to preempt militarily. That's where you and I disagree. And the reason is that if we have two choices here, and I think that's the trouble with the Israel right now that Netanyahu is weighing, and that is, at what moment does he stop waiting for Trump to take the initiative? And we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so who knows? Maybe they're already coordinating. We don't actually know. We don't know when or if it's happening. But my feeling is Israel cannot sit around and wait for that to happen, and I don't like it every time Netanyahu says, to Iran, if you attack us, you'll be sorry. No, sorry. Enough with the if you attack us. If that's what you think, attack first, okay? Enough with the October 7th. Enough with being sitting ducks for enemies who swear to wipe us off the map.
Let's just be very clear. Israel cannot do anything without the approval of the United States.
Correct. That I know.
Let's not play,
You're right.
Okay,
You're right.
I just want
you're right,
Israel
but
get
so
the
far...
approval of the U.S. to attack in Qatar? I kind of thought they did, but we seem to be in a bit of a cloud of confusion.
Yeah, but this was a very local and isolated incident.
Yeah.
You know, moving to that issue, let's just move to Gaza for just a second.
Right, well, certainly we've seen a lot of escalation going on in Gaza.
I wish we could move to Gaza as journalists. Israel is preventing us
Well,
of
tell the
this.
Supreme Court.
I wish you would move to Gaza and live there for a while.
Thank you. I wish I could visit there.
The current escalation in Gaza, who's to blame? Who's trying to restart the war, or is it a terrible misunderstanding?
It's not a question. I really. Where is the question?
Is Hamas provoking Israel?
540 people Israel killed in the ceasefire. 540 people.
So
Out
Israel's
of them,
trying to restart the war.
What does this has to do with ceasefire? How can you call it a ceasefire? 500, over 500.
His answer seems to be that Israel never really genuinely agreed to a ceasefire.
More than this,
Not that Hamas is provoking Israel and doing violations.
And you hear it in the army. Israel, or the government of Israel, does not want Chapter B to be implemented. Israel is very clear about it. They have no other choice but to go through the motions, but they'll do anything possible to sabotage the second stage, anything possible to get back to the fighting table, anything back to settle Jews in Gaza. That's the real plan of this government. They never gave it up, including transferring the occupation.
Okay, so first of all, ceasefire. Now, that's a big joke on the part of Hamas. Anybody killed in Gaza is the fault of Hamas and the other terrorist groups. It is true that since the ceasefire, Israel has had to keep fighting because terrorists keep coming out, attacking soldiers, or on the way to attacking soldiers. They go up to the yellow line. There are still tunnels. Today, weapons were found in UNRWA sacks, etc. It's still going on. There are still tunnels. And this period of time, the one lucky thing about it is that the United States is not condemning Israel from doing this repeatedly, the same thing in Lebanon with the Hezbollah, which is to say that every time we see terrorist activity, we go after it. But one thing I just would like to say about it, Israel is right to be hesitant about this Plan B in Gaza. It's not that Israel is dying to go back to war. It is that plan is delusional because it is based, again, on this false idea that all you need to do to prevent jihad and terrorism is give people work and affluence and a better life. We've seen again and again what a big, fat lie that is.
So there's a technocratic government, there's going to be an international stabilization force, there's a board of peace, a whole edifice has been created to attempt to give the Palestinians some version of hope and some reason to not support Hamas. You believe all that is pointless? What would be your better version of a Phase B?
Kill them all.
You know, that's what you get from what I said is kill them all, really?
Yes.
Listen, I got to tell you something. Where killing is concerned, if you want to know, if it were just up to me to think about all the people I dislike and would like to kill, it would probably be, you know, most of the world. But that I'm not into killing people. What I am is into looking at something realistically, and I don't think that the Palestinian mind frame is going to change until the education system is changed, until the Palestinian Authority stops funding terrorism and encouraging it. And
but all that is in Phase B.
That's all in Phase B. Okay, but we have to see it happening. But the idea
and we also have to see potentially disarmament happen beforehand. I mean, I think one of the questions that we need to talk about, you mentioned the International Stabilization Force, and there are many who believe while there is a commander, there are no soldiers to work under this commander at this stage. And who is going to fill that stabilization force? Certainly it doesn't appear to be people who want to ensure that Hamas is disarmed and not carrying out terrorist attacks. Gideon, I mean, what is your vision if this would move forward to stage 2? How does it look in Gaza? What stops another October 7th?
If Hamas does not disarm.
Right.
I'm not concerned about another October 7th. I'm concerned about 2 million people who are homeless, who have nothing, no future, no past, no present. We cannot always focus only on ourselves. There is a people there who went through hell. None of us can even imagine what hell they went through. And now it's their time to have some rehabilitation. And the question is, how do we get to this rehabilitation? I don't care, by the way, if it will solve the problem or not. There is a huge humanitarian problem in Gaza which must be solved.
Gideon, if Hamas does not disarm,
it will not disarm. I tell you now, it will not.
Do you go on to the reconstruction and basically let that go and allow reconstruction to happen?
What is the alternative?
While Hamas is ruling Gaza?
What is the alternative? For 2 years, Israel tried to crash Hamas. With all the weapons, with the legal and the illegal operations, and nothing came out. Hamas is alive and kicking. You have to draw the conclusions of it. You think that after another 2 years you'll get it? You will not get it.
Do you believe that Israel is more secure today than it was on?
No, I totally disagree. I think that a lot was accomplished in those 2 years, and I think that, Gideon, you're ignoring all the decades up to those last 2 years. And we've tried again and again to rehabilitate Gaza, and billions of dollars and shekels and euros went into the Strip for reconstruction, rehabilitation, and Hamas. I mean, you should be angry at Hamas, not at Israel, for all the devastation in the Strip.
I would suggest that another piece of the puzzle is the upcoming Israeli elections, which must be held by October. Now, Gideon is saying that the government in Gaza essentially wants to restart the war, maybe on better terms, no hostages, maybe you can do more against Hamas, and they want to resettle it with Jews. That made sense when they had to preserve the coalition that demanded this. But Ruthie, you are very close to right-wing public opinion in Israel. Would that not harm the government with the right wing and the soft right if they were acting in a way that Gideon suggests and were wanting to resume the war, which was unpopular towards the end, and settle Gaza with Jews?
Okay, so first of all, I don't think settling Gaza with Jews is happening anytime soon. The way I don't believe, I know a lot of my right-wing friends will not be happy with this, I don't believe that annexing Judea and Samaria is happening anytime soon either.
It was annexed a long time ago.
Okay, well, you know, potato, okay, but officially not, and I really don't believe that that's happening. That there are aspirations. What I do agree with my right-wing religious friends, I'm right-wing, not religious. What I do agree is that in the long run, if Jews were settling Gaza, it would be a more peaceful place. But that's not because I think that's what's going to happen.
Like the West Bank, for example. Like the West Bank, such a peaceful place with Jews all around. Everyone loves them. Everyone lives with them in peace. Apartheid there and apartheid there.
Oh,
nothing
apartheid.
Peaceful about
That's the big lie. That's a big lie. But in any case, I don't think that's happening, elections or no.
Just want to ask for a really 10-second prediction from each of you. Gideon, are we going to be at war with Iran by this time next week when we film Insider?
I don't think so. It might come later. But right now, America is going for negotiations, for diplomacy, and we have just to cross our fingers that it will succeed.
Ruthie?
Well, I'm crossing my fingers that this is all the same kind of lead up as we had to the 12-day war, where President Trump said, I'm negotiating, we'll see, I'm going to decide whether to join.
But in the end,
I'm hoping it's a fake out, although I have to say, in this case, I suspect it isn't.
Okay, so unfortunately, we are out of time, and we'll only know next week when Insider reconvenes. So I really want to thank all of our guests for being here today. If you found this discussion valuable, please check out the ILTV podcast for a further series of in-depth interviews on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ann Hoffman.
I'm Dan Perry.
And thanks so much for watching us. We'll see you next time.